from self-employment. Where's average gross earnings from employment? Here we go. We can turn this into a numeric facet. All right. All right. This is not. All right. All right. This is not converted, so we need to first transform it into a number. Convert it, so we need to first transform it into a number. And then we can look at the numeric facet. And so if I click on males, you can see their averages, and you can click on females, and you can see how it's changing. So it's easy to see just by changing these values that in this particular set of data, the men are making more than the women. Okay, so you can sort of play around with these. And that's going to help give you a little bit of insight. You'll also notice that in this column, you have a character encoding error. You've got some 20 characters up here for the average title of gross earnings. Okay. And it gives no indication of units, so you may need to go in and edit that beforehand and fix that before you export. Okay. Let's look at our age band. This is edit that beforehand and fix that before you export. Okay. Let's look at our age band. This is we want to right now age band and average gross earnings. Are these number fields or text fields? They are text fields. And because if they're number fields, what's 20 to 35 look like if it was a number field? That would be minus 15, right? So if we want this to become a number field, we need to change it. We need to change the age band value. So if we can go, can't just convert it to a number. It's not going to let us do that. Okay, we're going to get an error if I try this. Cannot transform it. Okay, so what can we do? I'm just going to turn this off for now. Well, what we could do is go to edit cells. We could do a transform, but we are doing, we're going to use an expression value. So facet, we're going to do a custom numeric facet. That's what we want to do. So this is what it currently looks like, 20 to 35. But what do we really want it to be? So facet, we're going to do a custom numeric facet. That's what we want to do. So this is what it currently looks like, 20 to 35. But what do we really want it to be? Well, if we take, instead of the value that it's receiving, we want to convert it to bits. And the bits is going to look at the actual bit value as opposed to the ASCII value. And so what this means is, this is getting back into computer programming knowledge. The number 27 is stored very differently, or the number 20 is stored very differently from the text string of 20. And we want the actual number in this case. And what number do we want? Well, we want, in this particular bits variable, we want it to contain the value of that string, but we're splitting that string based on the dash. So we're dealing with the age band, 20-35.
This is Python.
Yes, we are using, sorry, you're right, we're using Python. Okay, you're right, this is where we have to change the language to Python. And if we had other languages like JavaScript, we could use that, but we have to use Python for this. Thank you for that catch. Now we want to figure out the difference. So how do we calculate the difference? Well, we want the integer, and we're dealing with bits. The first one, element 1, but we're going to subtract element 0. Okay. And diff is equal to diff divided by 2. So what we're calculating is an average. So now what do we want to see? We want our value to equal integer of bits 0 plus diff. All right. So what just happened? Now a second here. Let's expand this. Return value. What just happened? What's happening in this block of Python code? Can anybody walk me through this? So we created a variable and we called it bits. And I said it's storing the numeric value, but it's an array. it's storing actually the two strings, and it's split the initial value between the, on either side rather, of the dash. And so it put it into an array for bits, and element 0 stored 20, and element 1 stored 35. Everybody follows along there. And then we said, calculate the difference. So we created a new variable called diff. And we took the integer value of that string in bits array index 1. Bits array index 1 is 35. So now we're taking the integer value, so now it's the number 35, not the string 35. And we're subtracting the integer value of the string in bits 0. So put it, all right? So what's happening in this block of Python code? Can anybody walk me through this? So we created a variable and we called it bits. And I said it's storing the numeric value, but it's an array. It's storing actually the two strings, and it's split the initial value between the, on either side rather, of the dash. And so it put it into an array for bits, and element 0 stored 20, and element 1 stored 35. Everybody follows along there. And then we said, calculate the difference. So we created a new variable called diff. And we took the integer value of that string in bits array index 1. Bits array index 1 is 35. So now we're taking the integer value, so now it's the number 35, not the string 35. And we're subtracting the integer value of the string in bits 0. So the first element, or index 0 of the bits array, which is 20. So 35 minus 20, the value of diff is 15. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. However, it's going to get rounded down in this particular case. So we take bits 0 once again, which is 20 plus 7, and that's how we get 27 as the value. And so it returns the value of 27. So instead of the band, we get the midpoint of the band for all of these values. Okay. So if I hit OK, we can now work with numbers. And you can see the age band here there's 4 different bands that I calculated. All right. Now, if we want to do salary, it's a little bit more complicated because it's not just numbers. What else do we have? We have numbers and we have characters. So if I want to modify this, it's a custom numeric faucet once again. But I have the code from the instructions, and we're going to walk through that. Oh, don't like that internal error. Often when it does that, it's because of some values were copied and pasted that I didn't like. Well, let's just manually type it in. Value equals value dot replace a 0, 0, 0. Okay. And if I did return value, now I've replaced the case. Okay. So I just got rid of the case and changed them to 0, 0, 0.
Yeah, that's
All right. So that makes sense there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we can use some conditional programming. And this is why we want you to learn programming in this course, because this is part of the data cleansing. If value, the first element, okay, equals the greater than sign, value equals value 1 colon. All right. If value 1, and I'm just copying this right out of it. It doesn't create a new column. That value is in the facet that's created. If I wanted to create a new column, I'd have to create that new column. The faucet just creates a new perspective of viewing the data and working with the data to make sure everything's properly organized. Okay. If you wanted to create a new column, then we would have used the create a new column from the previous value, the same way we did in the last data set exercise. So we're not creating a new column right now, we're just creating a facet. Does that answer your question, Rabba? So we're going to go equals, that's less than. Value is equal to value 1. All right, so we just got rid of the less than if it's the first element, and greater than if it's the first element. I'm just going to increase this working area so that we can see it. value 1 is, if there's an equal sign, we want to get rid of that. Value equals value. All right. Now we're going to start working with some of these. Now we've got to a point where we want to start working with the different numbers and putting them into different variables so that we can convert them into numbers. So we're taking sign. Value equals value 1 colon. All right. If value 1, and I'm just copying this right out of it. It does create a new column. That value is in the facet that's created. If I wanted to create a new column, I'd have to create that new column. The faucet just creates a new perspective of viewing the data, working with the data to make sure everything's properly organized. Okay. If you wanted to create a new column, then we would have used the create a new column from the previous value, the same way we did in the last data set exercise. So we're not creating a new column right now, we're just creating a facet. Does that answer your question, Robo? So we're going to go equals, if that's less than, the greater. Now we're going to start working with some of these. Now we've got into a point where we want to start working with the different numbers and putting them into different variables so that we can convert them into numbers. So we're going to create that bits array like we did before, and we're going to populate it with the split of those values based on the less than symbol. And if the length of bits is greater than 2, we're going to return int value. Okay. In other words, if it's less than 2, if it's only the one value, then we're going to return the real value. Okay. However, if it has a greater length, so it's greater than 1, i.e. 2, now we need to perform a calculation. So the first element bits needs to be subtracted by the second element bits. We want to calculate the difference. And we're going to add the difference to int bits 0 plus if. Now we have our averages. Okay. So now we have our averages for all of our effective average. Okay. So we can see the different bands now.